Hey everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Beaton, joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the fantasy master Lothario, the mustachioed man of mystery, the spectacled savant of sports, only baseball though. Gray Albright, how you doing over there, Gray?
The Wizard of Alliteration, Bedon. Good, man. By the way, Wizard of Alliteration was not alliteration.
It was not. It
It
was a
was not.
terrible,
It was
terrible
terrible.
attempt, but
Yeah.
it's okay. Not everybody can be me.
A lord. A lord of a lord of alliteration. I don't know. Hey, Bedon, what's going on, man? Hey, how you doing? So listen to this, man. So I got to tell you what I've been up to. All right. I went for my first trip to the Far East. I went to Japan, bro.
Okay, so you skipped Korea to go to Japan first. I see. I see. I see how
I
it is.
did. No, actually, my trip was planned for Korea, but they were like, "Don't you do a Bidon, a podcast with Bidon?" And yeah, you're not welcome here.
You'd be swarmed. I mean, you'd be swarmed on the streets as the most popular fantasy baseball podcast in South Korea, Gray. You'd be swarmed.
I would be, I'd be like the Beatles in Korea, the Beatles in 1950, but I'd be in Korea. Yeah, actually, my cousin teaches in South Korea right now. He's a teacher there.
So you really didn't want to go.
Yeah. So that was another reason why I didn't go. No. He was supposed to come meet us in Japan. Anyway, so I'm not going to tell you. It was a great trip, but I'm not going to tell you all the ins and outs of it because you probably don't care that much. I did get this pullover from Japan though. It's a bit much. If you're not watching on YouTube, it's let's just say if I were a person who jogged and I was at night, I'd be okay. I would be safe. Anyway, so here's a quick story. So we went to Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. Anyway, Osaka, we were only there one day, but we went to we were there like 20 hours in Osaka. But we had dinner there. The one night we were there, we had dinner at this yakitori place. Basically, that's skewers, yakitori skewers. So okay, so we're sitting at, and it's like a bar. There is I want to say 12 to 15 people in this entire restaurant. It's a really small place, just to give you an idea. There's like, I want to say 3 people behind the counter and like 12 people at the bar. Like there's no one here. It's real quiet. So except for the people to my immediate right, they're loud for Japan, especially because Japan. I don't know if you've been. I'm guessing you haven't, but
I have not.
It's very quiet. It's a really quiet country in general. Even cities of like Tokyo's, I think like 40 million people, and it's bizarrely quiet. Great city, very clean, beautiful, very nice people. Anyway, so we're in Osaka. We're at this bar, at this restaurant, eating skewers, and the people next to us are, they're having a good time. They're drinking Sapporo, sake, whatever they're drinking. They're enjoying themselves. So anyway, about halfway through the meal, they get up and they leave. They finish. And Cougs and I are sitting there, and the guy behind the counter, the chef who's cooking the skewers, he's like, he's in front of us, and he says to me and Cougs, "Where are you guys from?" And I'm like, we're from Los Angeles. And he's like, oh, really? Do you like the Dodgers? And I was like, yeah, I like the. Of course, I mean, to a certain extent, I know baseball though. He's like, well, do you know baseball? I'm like, yeah. I mean, I know baseball well. I do like the Dodgers, but it's complicated. They're not like my favorite team, but I know them, obviously. I live 5 minutes from the stadium back in LA. I'm a fan. So he's like, "Oh, so you know who was sitting next to you then?" I was like, "Huh? What? Wait, what?" He's like, "Well, you know baseball, and you're from Los Angeles, so you know who was sitting next to you." I'm like, "I really have no idea what you're talking about." I feel less like you're speaking English, but I feel like you are talking Japanese right now. What do you mean? Yes, I know baseball. Who was next to me? He's like, that was the biggest baseball star of Osaka. You didn't recognize him? It was Hideo Nomo. I'm like, what?
How did you not know that, Grant? How did you not see him?
Oh, he was right next
goodness.
to me. Hideo Nomo's next to me, being a little bit loud, I'll be honest.
If I was Hideo Nomo in Japan, I would be so loud all the time, Gray. I'm loud as it is. You would hear me from blocks if I was Hideo Nomo in Japan, because there wouldn't be people in the way, like talking on their phones, off their speaker. Like there wouldn't be those people because Japanese people have manners. And so you could hear me from blocks away.
Dude, I wanted to run out of the restaurant and see if I could track him down.
Just go grab him real quick.
Just for like a picture. I was like, I was sitting next to Hideo Nomo in Osaka, Japan, where he's from. Like, what are the chances? Oh my God, I'm such a big ass dummy. Oh.
And so the chef then was like, "So you don't know baseball?" You're like, "Yeah, I don't know anything. I'm a fraud. I shouldn't."
He was not convinced I knew baseball at all when I was like, "What?"
You're like, "Ask me who the fourth reliever is on the Rockies. Like, give me something. I'll give you that answer."
It's like Pierce Johnson. What? Daniel Barr? Tell me. Oh man, yeah. You know what? I dropped the ball. It was a ball dropping. So anyway.
And so the rest of the vacation, you walked around and asked random Japanese people if they were Hideo Nomo.
I know exactly. I was so busy looking for Ohtani, I didn't spot Hideo Nomo sitting next to me. Oh man.
I mean, like that's a perfect leeway, or just a transition into Ohtani right there. The winter meetings are wrapping up here. Let's just start there. There are all sorts of rumors. I think it's down to, I would say a handful, as in 5 teams, that are rumored to have submitted offers that, haven't been laughed out of the room, at least. All big markets. What are you thinking here, Gray?
Originally my plan was to go to Japan and sign Ohtani for this podcast, but I couldn't sign him with an agreement for an affiliate deal. I was like, you know what? Listen, I know you got some deals on the table for potentially going to the Dodgers, maybe the Jays, even back to the Angels. But what if you came to Razzball and you got a deal, an affiliate deal, so you get $1 every time someone buys an electric toothbrush from one of our links?
He didn't fall for that, Gray. I mean, did you mention that he got to replace a Korean person? That would have been a benefit. Like he'd be like, "Oh, I get to replace a Korean person? Oh yeah, that's worth it."
Oh man, that's like a 100 years of anger right there coming out and beat on.
I think it's probably more than 100, but let's not go down that path,
Okay, yeah, all right. We won't go back to the Shogun eras. So anyway, so the Dodgers, I think, are probably the lead. That would be, I mean, if I were Shohei Ohtani, I would go to the Dodgers above, like, because if I were him, which at least, reading the tea leaves, I guess, it would be matcha tea. If I were reading the tea leaves and if I were Ohtani and I wanted to go somewhere, I'd probably be like, I'd want to stay on the West Coast because, it's relatively close to Japan. I mean, my trip was 9 hours. He's probably on a much nicer flight and can get there in like 6 hours. But yeah, like the West Coast, I would guess is where he wants to stay. So San Fran, maybe the Angels possibly goes back there, or the Dodgers. Of those three teams, personally, I'd want to go to the Dodgers if I were him. But I mean, I guess there's a case to be made that the Giants are somewhat appealing. The Angels, I mean, if I were him, I would give up on the whole Angels thing.
Yeah,
But
just avoid that. Just
I
get
mean,
away from
like
that
it's
team.
like if you go back to the Angels after all this, yeah, I'm starting to question you a little bit. What are you trying to get out of this, man? So yeah, if I were him, I'd probably go to the Dodgers, but the Giants seem appealing. I guess potentially the Angels. There seems to be a lot of buzz. See, this is the point where we start to sound really foolish when this podcast comes out and he's already signed somewhere. But I'm about to say, a lot of people are talking about the Jays. I don't really see him going to Toronto. I don't know. Maybe. You know what? Far be it from me to know exactly what's going on. I'm just guessing like everyone else. But why would he want to go to Toronto? I mean, I know he's friends with Kikuchi supposedly, but what happens when Kikuchi leaves there? Like, yeah, and then he's in Toronto? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, Toronto's a beautiful city. I've been there many times. Nothing against the actual city. It just seems like if he wants to stay, I would think he'd want to stay on the West Coast just for proximity wise. So I don't know. It's all a guess. Also, I guess the Cubs were somewhat linked, but that also feels very, I don't know. That seems bizarre for the Cubs. Like the Cubs have been like, why didn't they just resign? Why didn't they resign Cody Bellinger? Like, I know Ohtani's much better than Bellinger. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't feel like the Cubs are really like going big after free agents and they're going to go after Ohtani. That feels like a made up rumor. I don't know, but again, if he signed with the Cubs on Sunday, I would be a little bit surprised, but also I'd be like, okay, I guess he wanted to go to the Cubs. I don't know.
Yeah, so like even last year the Cubs were linked to like the Ohtani sweepstakes that were coming, so it's been linked there for a while. I think this is completely a move by the Cubs to just say they went after him, but not really go after him. So that's my opinion as a Cubs fan on what the Cubs are doing. I would agree it's Dodgers and Giants as the favorites. I really hope for his sake and his sanity that he doesn't go back to the Angels. So I really for like baseball, I don't want him to go to the Dodgers. I don't want him to go to the Dodgers. That's just going to be gross, and I'm going to hate.
If he goes to the Angels, like he's basically Charlie Brown and Artie Moreno is Lucy holding the football. I mean, it's a little bit like, yeah, what are you doing, man? Why would you go back to the Angels? They're such a mess. But yeah, no, I hear you with not wanting to go to the Dodgers. I would personally, I'd like him to go to the Dodgers so I can go to like games and see him, but that's just selfish reasons. I don't honestly. I mean, I only go to like one game a year, so it's not like I'm going to be his biggest fan all of a sudden. I mean, I do like him. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I don't know. The Giants feel like it's a bit of I mean that feels like it could happen. Like I think the Giants are a realistic landing spot for him. It doesn't excite me as much for like him because the lineup, but I don't know. I mean, it'll get better. Like he'll get in it, and they have a few prospects hopefully. So yeah, I mean, I think for fantasy purposes, I think the best spot is the Dodgers. Probably second best is the Jays. Then I guess the Angels or Giants are probably a tie. I don't know. I mean, do you think much of the Giants lineup? I know Ohtani's going to be good in any park he goes to, so I'm not worried about that. But like the Giants lineup's kind of like
No, it's pretty mediocre across the board. But I guess the Giants organization has shown that it's pretty strong. I mean, every time they rebuild, they come back and they have a strong lineup. So at least you can kind of maybe just count on that. I guess in the thought process of wanting to be selfish and get to see him, Atlanta has been thrown in there as a rumor. I haven't seen where they submitted anything, but the Braves would be an interesting spot given the amount of ridiculous money that they're currently saving on Acuna and Albies and everybody else that they signed to their team for absolutely nothing. So obviously that would be absurd to stick his bat in the middle of that lineup.
Yeah, no, completely.
I'm actually going to start taking out ad space on your sweater there, and I'm going to green screen you for money for the Cubs. That's actually what I'm going to do, Greg.
Oh my God, that's brilliant.
All right, great. Let's move on to some of the stuff that has actually happened that won't make us look like idiots.
Hey,
come
you didn't realize this, but I'm actually the freeze from the 7th inning stretch. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No, he doesn't have huge glasses, Gray, and I know you couldn't run that field without.
Oh my
without
God! Speaking of glasses, wait till the new. They're out at the eye doctor right now getting the prescription put in them. But wait till you see the frames I got in Japan. Oh my God, they're ridiculous. You're gonna love them.
I can only imagine what they look like.
Oh my God, they're amazing. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Something out of a Dr. Seuss book, I hope.
Exactly.
Something Grinch-esque. Yeah, that would really work with the Grinch green. It would be perfect. I'm going to have Cool Whip put like a Grinch outfit on you in this green screen after the show. Yeah, so the biggest trade, obviously, so far is Juan Soto going to the Yankees. They also get Trent Grisham. I feel like that's just waiting for him to get cut eventually, but we'll see what happens. Maybe he gets a revival in Yankee Stadium. Going back over to San Diego is Michel King, Drew Thorpe, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, and Kyle Higashioka. I mean, it seems like a light return on the surface for a player of Juan Soto's caliber, but he's also coming into free agency next year, so the Yankees are going to have to shell out some serious money here, which they will have no problem doing.
Yeah, it's I mean, I think basically everyone considers it a 1-year rental. So yeah, whatever prospects they got, it's better than nothing because they weren't gonna, they obviously weren't gonna re-sign Juan Soto. I wonder, this wasn't something we had outlined or that I thought about previously, but I wonder what the return would have gotten for them, like in the July trade deadline. Probably not as much because they would have been more desperate to get rid of him, so they wouldn't have had as much. Juan Soto for a year is better than Juan Soto for a half year. I'm guessing probably. I mean, that was probably rattled around in someone's head over there in San Diego. Anyway, that's a beside the point. Juan Soto in Yankee Stadium. I think like I have him right now. I have the top 20 is already out on Patreon, the rankings. I want to say I have Juan Soto around, I want to say like 8, maybe. He's like, I think he's basically, I put out his projections on Razzball when I wrote up the trade. I think I put him at like, I want to say 41 homers, 12 steals, something in that ballpark, like around 280 average. He is, unfortunately for his fantasy value right now, it is extremely like the league is just loaded with guys who are 30 or better guys. Like, there's so many, like Corbin Carrolls and Bobby Witts and Tatis even, and there's so many guys who could potentially go 30, if not better, 35, 40 even, like Acuna did 40-70. I mean, there's just so many guys who are adding in speed into their game, being 5 category guys. That Juan Soto is great. I mean, obviously. I mean, that's that's not going to come as a shock to anyone. And I think he's probably a top 3 real baseball guy. He doesn't really have defense, but the walks that are added to his value for real baseball, he's incredibly like, I mean, it's just like add him into the lineup and you're helping your team so much for real baseball. For fantasy, I mean, like I said, I have him in the top 10 somewhere. I forget now off the top of my head, but I like him. I think he's great. I would totally draft Juan Soto in the top 10, but the lack of steals, I mean, even with 40 homers coming with 10, 12 steals, it's, I think like Aaron Judge comes with 40 homers and 10 plus steals too. Like, I don't know. Like, do you separate Aaron Judge from Juan Soto? They're kind of like, at this point, and their averages are real similar. I'm just talking for fantasy baseball. For real baseball, I mean, you can make a case for one or the other maybe, but because of on base percentage, maybe Juan Soto. Because of upside on power, maybe Aaron Judge. I don't know. I mean, but they're kind of similar with stat lines. I don't think they're really, I don't think Juan Soto, when I say 12 steals too, I mean, that's what he had last year. I don't really see Juan Soto stealing a bunch more. Like, he doesn't feel like a guy who's going to come out and get like, have that 25 steal season like a Paul Goldschmidt, like in his prime or something. Like, it doesn't feel like Juan Soto is just going to put up this like huge stolen base number. So, and he's also like, he's great for average, but he's also, he's not like a huge power. He hits a lot of line drives. I mean, he's so good. He's like so good that it's hard to say negative. Like the whole point of, discussing Juan Soto is to talk about how great he is, but how great he is kind of boring. So it's like, what's negative about him? I guess the steals, maybe the power, because he's more of a line drive guy. I mean, he's not like a huge fly ball guy. Like, last year he hit 32% fly balls, which is fine for him because he's going to be a 20% homer fly ball guy. But still, that comes out to like 37 homers at best. Assuming Yankee Stadium helps him by, a handful, it pushes him over 40. But if we're sitting here next year and he's like a top 12 overall fantasy guy with, say, 105 runs, 35 homers, 115 RBIs, 12 steals, and a 285 average, that sounds about right. And that's only top 12. That's not a top 5 guy. Like, I don't think Juan Soto, and this is really splitting hairs, but I don't think Juan Soto, he didn't leapfrog like 10 guys with this trade. I think he moved into the top 10 and he's like, barely top 10, but that's still good. It's still really good. I just don't think he's now like top 5. I can't imagine looking at Corbin Carroll and his potential of like 25 homers and 50 steals and saying, yeah, I want Juan Soto over that. And that's even with Corbin Carroll's little bit of a wonky shoulder. Like, I don't see, looking at like Julio Rodriguez is another one. He's 30-30 guy. I can't see taking a Juan Soto over that. Like, it just doesn't seem like, it's kind of splitting hairs, but I just don't think Juan Soto has become, a top 5 guy with this trade. He's moved up a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I want to say like he moved up from like the 14th to 15th best hitter, or excuse me, best overall guy, to like between 9 and 12, somewhere in that range. And that's still excellent. But yeah, I don't know if he went up any higher than that. I don't know. What's your take on it?
So I guess I did my rankings. I released them, the November 30th. So last week I released them. We're talking on Thursday, December 7th here. So I released those. I had him at 22nd overall. I think with this trade, I'm probably moving him up to 18th. So to your point, like, he's not jumping 20 spots into my top five. I mean, I think people are probably maybe yelling at their listening device right now that I would have him down at 22 to begin with. But when we're talking about fantasy, you already mentioned he's not really a stolen base guy. He had 12 last year. So yeah, 10 maybe. And we've seen his stolen base tends to fluctuate a little bit. It's kind of based on how much he feels like running. It seems like it. So I'm not counting on that. The average isn't. I mean, we're not talking like a Freddie Freeman average in an on-base league. Yeah, he moves up into that elite area, but for our purposes, like he was a 285 hitter in the second half last year. He was a 275 hitter for the full season. We've seen him hit 351. I'm not saying he can't because he's an amazing hitter. That was in a very small sample size, but like we haven't really seen him put up 320 consistently year over year, despite being an amazing hitter, because he just takes walks so often that he's letting some of that go. And even the power, you're saying 40 home runs, and it could happen, but he's really been like a high 20s guy, and like a high 20s 280 hitter with 10 stolen bases just isn't that like over impressive. Like there's definitely the upside there, which is why he fits into the ranking he does. But I mean, you can kind of get that number from guys going in, the 80s, maybe even like around 100. You can find a few guys that are going to give you similar to that with maybe less average and obviously less upside. Um, but you're right. There's just so many guys that are giving you the full package right now. It's hard to climb him too high.
Yeah, no, exactly. We'll take, this is already going to sound ridiculous, but Mike Trout healthy or Juan Soto. I mean, kind of. I mean, and Mike Trout's going at like 75 overall. Take a less ridiculous guy who could stay healthy. Jorge
Nolan
Solar.
Arenado?
Yeah, Arenado, who seems like he's on decline, but Arenado, say 27 homers, 260, 2 steals, 3 steals maybe. I was going to say Jorge Solar, who has no speed, but probably a little bit higher on the power. He's going to hit 260. If Juan Soto hits 280, 260 to 280, is it really worth a 90 spot difference in drafting? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like it's kind of. I mean, I hear you. What you're saying. Just randomly, I looked at Steamers. We have Steamer rankings are on the site, by the way. Rudy hasn't promoted them yet, because he's still doing some Q&A on the he's still fine-tuning the stats. But as of right now, we do have 2024 projections and rankings on the site for Steamer. And Juan Soto is at number 9, right by Mookie Betts. So, I mean, take that for what it is. You're saying he's going to move up to 18 for you. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, it's like splitting hairs again. But, I think the floor is Juan Soto is like you're buying the floor, really, like, because you're assuming it can only be so bad. I mean, in the middle of the Yankees lineup, with his ability to take a pitch, you're assuming at worst the floor looks like 27-7, 280, which, I mean, that's not great, don't get me wrong, but that's the floor. You're assuming much more than the floor, and that's also with a floor of like 90 runs, 100 RBIs. And again, that's the floor. You're assuming much more, but it's the floor. I'm making a song. It's the floor. You're assuming much more. It's the floor. It's the floor. You're assuming much more. Anyway, yeah, I like Juan Soto though. Like I said originally, if he were there at like 10 overall and it's my pick, I would have no problem taking him.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. I know I'm currently 10 spots, I think, from consensus, which is we're still very early. So I'm definitely low on Juan Soto. He will climb, as I mentioned, once I sit down again and re-rank everybody. I'm trying to do projections right now. So once that's done, I'll then use those and readjust from there.
You know what it comes down to, though, with the rankings this year, and we'll talk about this when we go over the rankings in January when we get together again and talk about rankings. We'll talk about this more, but it really is Acuna than the entire league. It's basically it's everyone's rankings, not just mine. It won't just be Steamers. I'm sure it's yours. It's just Acuna and everyone else.
Yeah, for me, there's like Acuna 2 through 7. I absolutely love, and then from like 8 to I don't know, like is kind of they could go in any order, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like
Right.
8 to 40, it could go in any number of ways. Even 8 to like 50 could go to any number of directions. Like somebody could go in the third round in one, go in the fifth round in another, and I wouldn't be that surprised just because of the way that it's kind of going to break down and how much you take upside, whether you trust young guys, whether you're going more, whether you're looking for power, whether you're looking for speed, the combo, whether you're going pitching early, like all that's going to mix and make a very interesting kind of mixing pool of the first few rounds. And I feel like it's going to be more mixed up than it has been in previous seasons.
It's basically it's Acuna, then everyone else, and then Trent Grisham. So it's that those Trent Grisham and Acuna are the same. They're the bread. Everyone else is the meat in the sandwich. Trent Grisham is like he's probably in the best place he could be ballpark wise, but if like they just traded, we'll talk about Michel King in a second, but like they just traded all these guys for Juan Soto. Trent Grisham's like basically dude, are you the guy carrying Juan Soto's bags? No, you traded for me too. Who are you, man? This is like the Padres are just like, will you take Trent Grisham?
We can't cut him. We won't cut him. We're
not gonna cut him and eat the money because we need the money. We need it. Yeah, Trent Grisham's just like, unfortunately, if he got 500 at bats in Yankee Stadium, I would be actually a little bit interested for fantasy, but yeah, he's so out of luck there, man. I see some people saying that he could potentially be a platoon guy with Verdugo, even though the platoon doesn't really make any sense, but that's because they're both lefties. But maybe somehow like Giancarlo gets benched a little bit more this year, and then Judge goes to DH, and then Verdugo gets in the lineup to get just to get better defense. Or if Verdugo doesn't go to the lineup, then maybe some people are suggesting that Grisham goes for his glove. I feel like Grisham's going to get traded for a middle reliever. I mean, I don't see Grisham really getting any sort of playing time. Since I mentioned him, Verdugo, I think Verdugo again, I don't think he's really helped by the park either, because he's another line drive hitter. He doesn't pull the ball. I think his spray chart showed me him being more that could also be the wall though, because when you're playing in a park with the wall, you want to hit the ball off the wall because it's an easy single or easy double getting the ball off the wall. So you just, you aim for it basically. So that could be why his spray chart shows so much the opposite way. But even if it isn't, it's not like Yankee Stadium is making him a great hitter. And also, Dominguez is going to come back in July. So, I don't know how much Verdugo is going to play once Dominguez is back. I feel like Verdugo in the first half of the year, he might get a little bit of a boost being in Yankee Stadium and in the Yankees lineup. But overall, I think Verdugo took a hit in fantasy value too.
Yeah, I can see how Verdugo might. I mean, I think just defensively, he's probably going to find, a reason to be in there. So I think from that standpoint, maybe just he's really the only, plus defender that they're going to have out there. I mean, Judge has shown good defense, but I mean, he's not an elite defender. Part of it's playing a
I think
shallow
it
right
also is.
field.
Yeah, I think it's also like he's probably like they don't want to have him injure himself in the outfield. So
Right.
I mean, and this is also coming from a place like as of right now, Giancarlo is quote unquote best shape of his life. That'll last until like April 15th. And it's like, it's tax day, baby. Giancarlo's obliques pay up. It's like there's no way Giancarlo's staying healthy. So even though Dominguez hurts Verdugo in July, that's assuming Giancarlo is still healthy and playing at DH. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts here. I just don't think Verdugo is helped maybe as much as people might think because there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed for at bats. Anyway, you want to talk about Michael King?
Yeah, let's go ahead to the other side of this trade, which is Michael King, Drew Thorpe, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, and Hige Yashuk. Yeah, Kyle, the catcher, over to over to San Diego. I think really, right now, Michael King's the big piece here. Brito showed, a brief glimpse in 2021, and then got rocked when he got his chances last year. Vasquez is a fairly high thought after prospect for the Yankees or, the San Diego Padres. What are you thinking about with Michael King? He's kind of he was that tweener where he was in the bullpen and then got some starts. What are you thinking here?
Well, I think this is probably one of the bigger upticks in fantasy value. I think it's going to hurt him in wins, obviously, but it's good that he's going to San Diego just to get well, first of all, it's a better park. I mean, that's obvious, but even if it weren't a better park, they traded Juan Soto for him. They're not going to, you know, move him back and forth from the bullpen. Like he's gonna be a starter. So that's much better. Even if it were a worse park, it's good that he's a starter. So that's a definite benefit. Like I want to say he becomes like a fantasy number 3. Like he has, well, at least what he's shown. At least he's got solid command, good strikeout ability. None of it is a huge sample size because of as you said, they pulled him back and forth between the bullpen and the rotation. So he was I don't want to say yanked around because it's a bad pun, but he was, and for lack of a different word, I think he's probably one of my, like, I look at him as potentially, like, same first name, Michael Waka, what he did last year. I could see Michael King doing similar numbers, like that's like a 3.5 to 3.6 ERA, 1.2 ish WHIP, 9.5 K per nine in 130 ish innings. Not, I mean, for a 10 team or yeah, I mean, you're probably drafting him in a 10 teamer, but in a 12 teamer, you're absolutely drafting him. And then if they limit him in the second half, you can just drop him, or you can move on if there's an issue. But I like Michael King a lot. I think this is a really positive move for him.
All right. So are you thinking like top 50 starting pitcher?
Yeah. Yeah, top 50, I would say. Probably borderline. I'm working on my starting ranking. It sounds about right. Somewhere in like a number 3 range. So 50, yeah.
Yeah, I will say I sat down when I obviously did my rankings of starters, and starting pitching is very, very difficult to rank at some point because there's so many people they're either like young guys coming up. We have like some guys who struggled last year, but you would expect them to turn it around. You have some injury guys who are coming off of injuries that we're not quite sure where they're, how they're going to bounce back. Like there's a bunch of guys in this mix of pitchers, and it gets really foggy in that pitching area. But there's also a ton of like different chances to take. So it's kind of this great mix of I can find value because I'll find guys I like, but at the same time, some guys may just go randomly because that's how pitching is going to be this year.
Yeah, no, completely. I think there's like, there's a lot of 8.5 K per nine, 2.5 walk per nine guys. Like there's a lot of like the Aaron Savaliers of the world.
Yeah.
Like it's like, is he gonna be good or droppable in a 12-team league? And how good could he be? Like, could he become like, I don't know, Logan Gilbert, or is he gonna fall off and become like Miles Mikolas or something? It's like there's a lot of those guys, those middle tier starters that are like, where Michael King is probably sitting right now, where it's like he looks better than the Savaliers of the world, but a lot more risk. It's like it's hard to know what you're getting from Michael King because he doesn't have like, this huge track record, but yeah, he looks good so far. Like what he's done, he might get gassed by, like I said earlier, he might get gassed by July, beginning of August, but then you can probably just drop him.
Yeah, right now I have him in the Jose Barrios, Brandon Fat, Shane Bieber range.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah. Yeah, all those, and then it's like you look at guys like the ones you mentioned, Barrios is like good track record except for 2022, obviously. Michael King, no track record. It's like there's something with each guy. It's like, that guy's got this, but he doesn't have that, or this guy's got that and he doesn't have this. So yeah.
Yeah. It's just like which one do you like? What's the narrative that you can talk yourself into to some extent? We talked about Verdugo. He got traded from Boston to the Yankees. I believe that's only the 7th trade since 1950 between the two teams. Boston gets.
It's so funny. That means there is only 6 other guys before him that pissed off their manager to the point where I don't care where he goes. Alex Cora was like, I don't care where you send him, but send him somewhere.
Get him away from me right now.
He hated him so much. Oh man, if people don't appreciate what I'm saying, just Google Alex Cora versus Alex Verdugo. They started in July and they did not stop arguing amongst themselves for like 3 months. Anyway, yeah, Alex Verdugo to the Yankees, which we talked about. What's next?
Yeah. Moving on, we got the Mariners sending Jarred Kelenic, Marco Gonzalez, and Evan White with some cash to the Braves for Cole Phillips and Jackson Cower back to the Mariners. And then the Braves then sent Marco Gonzalez almost immediately to the Pirates for money and a player to be named later. So I think maybe the big news for our purposes is really what the Braves are getting, which is Jarred Kelenic, Evan White, and then Marco Gonzalez, I guess, to the Pirates is, he's going to be in that streamer realm. So
he's garbage. Sorry, Marco Gonzalez, if you're listening. I think with probably like from what I've heard, this was a salary dump by the Mariners. So that is what it is. I didn't even think Kelenic. I mean, the fact that they're dumping Kelenic, it's like he really wasn't even making that much, was he? I don't know. I don't know what the Mariners are. Maybe we didn't talk about the Mariners with Ohtani. Watch them come out of nowhere and get him. Anyway, Kelenic, I like the park a lot. Atlanta, that is. And the lineup is obviously really good. Like you could probably they put Orlando Arcia in that lineup and they made him interesting. So that lineup can do a lot of work. I do wonder how much, because they're going to platoon him, I'm assuming, even though Snitker doesn't platoon anyone. Like he's he really gives everyone at bats. But he also has really good bats to give at bats too. So, I mean, I'm wearing green and I'm talking like Dr. Seuss. I mean, the only ones like Matt Olson and Michael Harris II, they're the only lefties really, outside of Kelenic, obviously. And you're not platooning those guys. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Snitker really I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he gives his guys so many at bats, like his starting lineup. So maybe Kelenic can, figure out how to get 450 plus at bats. I think I projected him for like a little over 400, so like 50 less than that. But yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know. It's the more at bats, the better, because the lineup is so good. I still don't really, I mean, outside of like April, Kelenic wasn't very good. Like he was bad from May through September. So I don't really have, I don't want to be like negative for everyone, but I don't have like a ton of like great things to say for Kelenic. I mean, he has not looked good outside of like this weird 2.5 week stretch in April last year. Outside of that, he was pretty bad. So yeah, I mean, maybe the Braves fix him. Maybe he goes off in Atlanta. It's a great lineup. Like the opportunity to be good is definitely there for him. I think also, like immediately, on a side note, immediately as soon as you hear anything positive about Vaughn Grissom getting playing time, the Braves are like, nah, they're like D from What's Happening. Nah. Yeah, I don't know. I like Vaughn Grissom too, but I really don't see him getting at bats unless someone gets injured. Unfortunately, they talked for a brief second about him playing left field, but once they got Kelenic, I think at best him and Kelenic platoon, but even that, I don't know. I mean, maybe, sure, they could platoon, but that's not going to help Grisham's fantasy value. So. Yeah, I think Kelenic is interesting. I'm not totally in. The funny thing is, like, no matter what he does each year, it seems like he gets drafted in the exact same spot. Like he's always, it's like, oh, it's a 175 overall. Let's see what Jarred Kelenic is up to. I'm ready.
This is the year.
This is the year it's gonna happen. Maybe it's more like 225 overall, but it's somewhere like he's always in that like 60th outfielder range of like, okay. I mean, I don't really care for Mike Yastrzemski, so
screw it. What? Yeah, like I don't really want Gavin Lux on my team.
Oh, yeah, it's like Mark Kenha is boring. Yeah. So anyway, I think I'm interested in Kelenic, but I'm not totally sold that this is some sort of like magical fix for him. But yeah, I'll try him.
Yeah. I think best case for Vaughn is kind of a platoon without anybody going down with left field. I don't know if Vaughn can play left field. He's never really done it, at least at the majors level. So we'll see how that experiment goes. It can't be that much worse than his infielding. So why not give it a shot? But hopefully Vaughn can find playing time somewhere. I think there's still a pretty non-zero chance that he gets traded for some pitching if Atlanta doesn't come out with a starter from somewhere
I will
as
say
well.
that probably Kelenic's the most positive thing for Kelenic is that he's going to be facing the Mets a lot more. And the most Metsy thing for the Mets to do is to suffer at the hands of Kelenic. So there is a possibility. It won't be that Kelenic gets better, but it's just that Metsing will get him better.
He just goes Gleyber Torres on the Mets and just hits like 12 home runs and makes all of his season value in 3 series. Yeah, that would be fantastic. I would love to see that happen. Actually,
exactly. It's like it's not that Gleyber Torres is good. It's just that he gets to face the Orioles 20 times a year. So it's like, yes, he's more or less good. There's 1/8 of the games he's facing bad now. That was the old Gleyber. That was 2 years ago Gleyber. This is a all new Gleyber.
That was the old Orioles too.
Yeah, that was the old Orioles too. Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. I think Kelenic's interesting, and I don't think Grisham has anything. I don't think there's anything there anymore.
Yeah.
But you know what? I still have like in my top 20 shortstops, or somewhere, I still have Vaughn Grissom in my top 20 shortstops that goes to like 65. I'll still have Grisham somewhere in there, but yeah, he's not looking good for him.
Yeah, I still shoved him inside my top 40 at each position, second base and shortstop, even without a job. I'm still shoving him in there just to do it. Let's move on to some signings, Gray. We're already long for the show. That's fine. It's been a long time since we talked. Eduardo Rodriguez goes to Arizona. I think this is probably the biggest, well, one of the biggest pitcher signings we've had so far. Arizona gets another starter. They needed another arm. It seems like a good fit. He doesn't have to go to a terrible park, which is great because I get scared by Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yeah, no, totally. I think I don't have I didn't do the research, but I want to guess that where he's going is a lot worse than where he's been. That could be true for everyone. But I mean, Detroit versus Arizona and AL Central versus NL West. It doesn't feel quite lateral. It doesn't feel like a positive. But I do believe in Eduardo Rodriguez, and he was good in Fenway for quite a few years. I have no problem with Eduardo Rodriguez. As again, I mean, I don't have the starter rankings in front of me that I'm working on, but he's also like around a number 3. Like I was saying with Michel King, except he's more innings, safer, more innings, probably. Less upside, maybe a little bit of better bet for wins, but 3.75 ERA, 1.18, 1.2 WHIP in that area. It's solid though. I mean, that's fine. That is like we were saying, Aaron Savalier earlier. Like that's good. Eduardo Rodriguez is like. He's like an 8.5 K per 9, 2.5 walk per 9, plus or minus like a 0.3 on each of them, somewhere in that range. He's fine. He's totally like, I don't think anyone drafts Eduardo Rodriguez and is like, woo, and high fives himself, but he's okay.
Not anymore, at least. Not anymore. People used to.
Yeah.
People used to do that. Great. Yeah. It definitely used to happen. But yeah, he's 150, 160 good innings. So, that's where he fits in. He fits in that grouping of pitchers where that's what you're getting from them, and that's fine. Sonny Gray goes to St. Louis, 3 years, $75 million. St. Louis is just signing every pitcher they can possibly find.
Yeah, that is over the age of 35. Yeah, I don't know how old Sonny Gray is, but he's 34. Yeah, I think I like Sonny Gray. I think he's so underrated every year. I don't know, maybe because it's the lack of K's. I don't know why it is that he's underrated, but he's an under 3.5 ERA in almost 1,600 career innings. Like, he's been good for a long time. For whatever reason, though, people do not get excited about Sonny Gray. I don't know. I think most people look at Sonny Gray as like a number 3. And I see a number 2 with Sonny Gray. I think he's really like, he's a good, like, if you've punted your first starter a little bit, not completely, like, say, you drafted like a starter like I would do at like, 50 overall, you didn't get a Spencer Strider, and instead you got like a Pablo Lopez, and you're looking for a high number 2. Sonny Gray, I feel like, is a solid, like, he's a solid ratio guy. Wins or whatever they're going to be, who knows? The Cardinals weren't good last year. I don't think that is necessarily indicative of what they're going to be this year. So I could see him getting 11 to 13 wins, and he's always got good ratios, and not really that bad on Ks. I like Sonny Gray a lot, actually.
Yeah, I do too. I think the thing with Sonny Gray is early in his career, there was 2 years where he came off of very good seasons and then just bombed people. And I think that's always held on with some people. And so, like, they look at Sonny Gray and they're like, yeah, but remember, he followed up that like sub 3 ERA season with a 5.7. So, like, can I trust him? But he's basically been a very solid pitcher for the last, I don't know, 4 seasons, 5 seasons. The worst of them was a 4.19 ERA in 2021, which isn't ideal, but it's not the worst thing. In 2021 was like the second reincarnation of the bouncy ball. So
and that year he had a lot of strikeouts too.
Yeah, and he was in Cincinnati, like, of all places. A 4.19 Cincinnati is a 3.7.
His homer, and you can see immediately in 2021, you can look at his homers and say, oh, okay, well, he was getting unlucky with home runs allowed. It looks like the ball was leaving the park. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I like Sonny Gray.
Yeah, very, very solid pitcher. I think if you like, he's that guy that you can get like anytime after 100, you're pretty happy with that pick that he fell to you, or maybe even before that if you're not a pitch waiter like Gray and I are. I have him at 25 right now, so I like him quite a bit.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too far off from where I think I have him, somewhere in that range. Like I said, like right after, like if you're taking a late number 1, you're going to want to follow it up with someone who's pretty safe, and Sonny Gray's about as safe as they come, I think, at least. Okay. Anyway, move on.
Yeah, moving on. Heimer Candelario to Cincinnati. Gray, why? Why, Gray? I saw it. I freaked out because I literally just got done answering a question like on the comments. It's like, where's everyone going to play in Cincinnati? I'm like, well, here's what's going to happen. I know there's an extra person, but they're going to just rotate out of DH, and then probably Jonathan India is going to get moved, and that's going to solve all the playing time right there.
Yeah, I think India's out the door.
I still think India's gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't really understand, because why sign Candelario when you have India under team control? Like, you have the same player, like same versatility.
You know what? The Reds have been accused of not spending money. So, it's like they're looking at the big picture here, and they're like, no one's going to accuse us of not signing, guys. We went out and signed someone. You didn't sign one that's so going to help you, though. Like, that's, you know what? No one said we had to sign someone who could help us. We're just signing people. So, bravo to the Reds for signing someone, even though it was the wrong someone. I think Heimer Candelario, I wrote a sleeper post for him like 2 years ago when he was not good. So I was early, but I really think Heimer Candelario, like in Cincy, especially good park, the lineup should be good. I think this is pretty solid for him. I'm excited. I think there could be a chance here for, I mean, it's like it depends on the average really with him, because he's probably going to hit 25-ish homers, I would guess, in that park. Like that would be a little bit high for him, but you give him a little bit of a boost because the park's so good. So 25 homers, he's good for 7-ish steals. If he can hit 260, 25, 7, 250. I mean, that's, 260, 250. That's not bad. That's a pretty good, because he's going very late. Now, he might bump up a little bit in ADP now that he's signed with the Reds, because it is a good park. But I think this is pretty, it's one of the more positive guys at the signings I've seen. I like it. I do worry that they have so many infielders. David Bell is like, he's not. Hey, I don't know if David Bell can handle all this, but if Jaime Candelario is hitting cleanup every day, it can only be so bad, I think.
He's out there like, go get me a ground ball pitcher. Please go get me a ground ball pitcher. One ground ball pitcher, just one. And then they're like, how about a corner infielder? That's the best I can do for you. And he's like, what about a pizza party?
Exactly. I just don't want. I'm just praying Spencer Steer has an everyday job. Like Spencer Steer, I'm actually doing a draft already, and I took Spencer Steer pretty early, but I have real good feelings about Spencer Steer. If he could stay in the 3-hole in Cincy after the year he just had, as long as he gets 515 at bats, man. Oh, I'm like, just Jaime Candelario can come in to the party. Just don't mess up Spencer Steer. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to, just to make the rest of my rankings make sense, I think I'm going to have to bury Jonathan India. Like, he's going to have to just plummet in my ranks until he gets traded. Because without that happening, my ranks make no sense, because there's not enough playing time for Steer, in CES, Ellie, Marte, McLean. Like, there's just not enough space for them.
I know. I hear that. I'll just add that last year it seemed like they had too many at bats, and you look at like Jake Fraley got a bunch of at bats, TJ Friedel got a bunch of at bats. Like they managed to get a lot of at bats to a bunch of people, and it's December. Guys get injured all the time. Like hopefully. It's not Spencer Steer gets injured. That's all I'm worried about. Anyone else can get injured. Just don't let Steer be okay.
I think I'm above consensus right now on every single Reds player.
So
it's not great, but it's basically we talked about this at the end of last season. Actually, I know we're going long, so we're just gonna keep talking. And if you don't want to listen, that's fine. We talked about this last season where you looked at it, the player rating, like the Braves killed. Like if you just owned all the Braves, you were pretty set. And I think this year that team for me is Cincinnati. Like you get Cincinnati players at so much less than you're getting Braves players to some extent, and you just load up on a good offense and just watch it run for you.
Yeah, no, preach, man, preach. I'm 100% with you. I love the Reds hitters. I think there could be some really good values there. Also, like Matt McLean. Oh my God, I love these guys. I love Matt them. McLean. I love them all. I'm so crazy about Reds.
So upset they signed.
And also, like, if we exactly.
So upset.
Totally. And then, but it also on the Braves thing, like too much is made. Like, I know people make a lot of things of like, oh, Michael Harris II is, I was guilty of it myself, but people say stuff like, oh, Michael Harris II is hitting like 9th in spring training. It kills his value. It's like, it's March. No one, like by the middle of April, even though Snicker specifically doesn't change his lineup that much, but there's things happen. Guys get injured. People move up the lineup. People move down the lineup. Things are constantly in flux. And also, if it's a good lineup, like I think Michael Harris II did hit at the bottom of the lineup for most of last year, and he still was valuable. So it's like, so it doesn't matter. Like if, I don't want Spencer Steer to hit 8th, but I'll take it if it's every day, man. I'll take it. Let's go.
I swear to God, if Heimer Candelario hits in top 4 grade, swear to God, I will drive to Cincinnati and I will make signs. I will do whatever it takes. We'll put up billboard. We will not have Heimer Candelario hitting the top 4 of that lineup. Please, oh God. Please don't let that happen. But yeah, absolutely. And I love Michael Harris. So anytime we can fit him in a show, I'm happy to do that. Craig Kimbrell to Baltimore. Baltimore, has this opening, so I guess it works for what it is.
Yeah. No, I think it's actually I was happy to see that because I thought the Orioles are just going to go in with Cano as their closer. So I was happy to see Kimbrell go there. I mean, Kimbrell's got his issues, but he's been solid for many years now. You can't say he's like a top 3 closer anymore, but he's good for 25 saves and a 3.5 ERA. It's, he'll be fine. And 25 saves might even be on the low side, but yeah, he's fine.
Yeah. I mean, just he loses it every, once a season, he'll lose it for a little while, but he gets it together and then he's fine there. And it's just a nice, it's good that they got him to fill in with Felix obviously going to miss most of the season, not all of the season there. We already talked about St. Louis a little bit. They signed Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn. I don't know if there's a whole lot to say right at this moment. I think we can kind of get into those guys, when we get into the rankings. Kyle Gibson kind of is Kyle Gibson, and then Lance Lynn's going to be just a hope and a prayer this year, really.
Yeah, no, agreed. I don't have much to say on them. I think they're probably number 7s in a deep fantasy league. So like in a 50 round draft champions league, and you're looking for pitching depth, you go for like a Kyle Gibson or a Lance Lynn at in around 350 overall or something.
Yeah. Kenta Maeda going to Detroit. So, I mean, not a whole lot of difference there. Stays in the same division. Still a good park. So, kind of same on Maeda, right?
Yeah. No, I kind of like Maeda. I don't know why. I don't know what deal he made with the Devil or what, but his ERAs he's outperformed his ERA by a lot for the last 2 years. By a decent amount last year. His stats, his peripherals look really good. His ERA did not look as good. So I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on there. If I had to guess, it's probably too much hard contact maybe. But anyway, I like Maeda as a number 5 to 6 in say, deeper league probably because he's a little bit boring, but I could see him being on waivers in a RCL league, but yeah, he's fine. I don't have anything really against Maeda.
Yeah, for whatever reason, last year he just got destroyed at home. I don't really have a good explanation for why that is, but other than he did give up 10 earned in 3 innings against the Yankees at home, so that's going to spike your ERA when you only get throw 100 innings. So really, you kind of remove that one outing, and the numbers look fine. To your point, he never performs to his peripherals in recent seasons for some reason, and maybe that's it. He just has a couple of blow-ups that ruin kind of the overall picture of the numbers.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I haven't really dug in too much, but it looks like his barrels are up a little bit. Yeah, I mean maybe. Yeah, it's just been really unlucky probably with left on base, some mistimed homers allowed. Maybe hard contact.
Yeah, he also just doesn't go he doesn't go super deep in the games at times. Not that he can't, he certainly does go, but I guess just baseball in general, without innings, 3 earned in 4 innings looks a lot worse than 3 earned in six. Just that's how it is. Um, Moving over to Milwaukee, Jackson Chourio, the top prospect there in Milwaukee, signed an 8-year contract, which really only means that he's not going to be hampered by any kind of, you know, playing time issues or anything. He can come up whenever they're ready for him to come up.
Yeah, well, during the month of October, when I go over rookies on Razzball, or actually maybe November. Anyway, I was going over rookies, like guys who are going to be rookies this coming year for redraft leagues, and I was struggling to try and find like the top rookie. I think this deal makes him the top rookie. I think he's the guy now. Like I was trying to find this year's Corbin Carroll or Gunnar Henderson, and I didn't up until this signing. I didn't really have one. At best, I was looking at like Evan Carter or some a bunch of other guys. But anyway, I think Jackson Chourio now is that guy. I feel like he has to break camp with the team unless there's something fluky with injury or something. Otherwise, he's up and he's right. I mean, he's like, so he's. I think in my post about him, I was comparing him to like a young Ronald Acuna Jr. and Ronald Acuna Jr. And I mean, Ronald Acuna Jr. is not old by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, Jackson Chourio looks like a 30-30 guy in the making, at least not this year. I'm not talking for 2024, but I wouldn't be shocked to see a 15 homer, 30 steal season from him, which is damn good. That's an easy number 2 outfielder easily. It's a probably around the top 100, 110 at worst, 120 maybe pick overall. I like him a lot. I'm pretty pumped that he got that deal. So I think we see him from opening day, and yeah, he's going to be good.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think there's a few guys in the prospect conversation right now, just depending on how they work out in spring training. It's Chourio, Colton Cowser, PCA in Chicago, Pete Crow Armstrong, Kjerstad. If Jackson Holiday breaks camp, that's obviously going to be a huge thing. So there's a few I think that could jump up in there, depending on the news of where they are in camp. But this certainly opens up the pathway for Chourio to just start the season right there.
Yeah, no, completely. I think out of all those guys you mentioned, I think Jackson Holiday would vault to the number 1 rookie if he were to break camp. But I don't see the Orioles starting the season with him. I know the people are talking about him breaking camp, but I just don't see it. They didn't break camp with Gunnar Henderson. They didn't break camp with Adley Rutschman. I just don't see them breaking camp with Jackson Holiday. But yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I do think this is maybe a more aggressive Baltimore regime in regards to pushing them, because they've been competitive now. Whereas when those guys were coming up, it wasn't like, oh, we got to get these guys up because we got to win games.
That's
it was
fair.
like, we'll get them up whenever it's convenient for our playing time and in our contract situation. Aaron Nola, even though he posted a 4.46 ERA last year, he got 7 years and $172 million from the Phillies. Congrats to Aaron Nola. I don't know that anything changes for him, obviously, because he stays exactly where he's been.
Yeah, no, totally. I think when we do the starter rankings, we can talk about him. There's no change. He's with the Phillies still.
Yeah. So we'll discuss where he fits in after that said 4.46 ERA, 1.15 WHIP type of season. But we'll get to that in the rankings. That was the last big signing or re-signing Gray. Was there anything else that you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Yamamoto. I would guess the Mets. Maybe the Yankees make a run because the Yankees now with Juan Soto. The Yankees have Juan Soto, Aaron Judge. I mean, people know what the Yankees have on hitting. And then they have Garrett Cole and what? What do they have after that? So I don't know. Yamamoto, though, I'm really excited for him. I think he could be a number one. Like, I'm super pumped. So I don't know. Maybe Mets, maybe Yankees, maybe another team. Who else? Jung Ho Lee was posted. I'm sure someone will sign him. I don't have like huge hopes for him though. He doesn't strike me as like a really big fantasy bat. He could be fine. I don't necessarily think he's gonna be bad. I just don't have like a ton of hope for him. There are a lot of people talking about Glasnow getting traded. I'll say this for the Rays and Glasnow. If the Rays are trading away a guy, I'd be a little bit worried. I'd be a little cautious. I would take a second and be like, what do they know that I don't know? Because as I was saying, I'm doing my starter rankings now, and I'm looking at Glasnow, and I'm like, has he ever thrown more than 120 innings? Because I'm not seeing it necessarily. I mean, he's good for when he's on the mound, obviously, but I don't know, man. Like, people taking Glasnow in front of Sonny Gray. All right, well, now I'm talking rankings because that's what I'm doing right now, so it's in my head. But, like, how are you taking Glasnow? I mean, Glasnow could be great. He hasn't done that once. So, yeah, I don't know. Rays are trade, but anyway, my point is if the Rays are trading a guy away, I don't know. You might want to look at it. You might just take a second and think. But yeah.
Stop, collaborate, and listen.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Make sure you got the right thing there.
Just take a second. That's all.
I think Jung Ho Lee, you're looking at, we talked about him earlier, like kind of like an Alex Verdugo type. It's not going to be a ton of power, not a lot of speed, but, if he gets in the right lineup in the right spot, he can put up some, decent counting numbers. But more of like a roster construction playing time type of play rather than an upside. Whereas Yamamoto, we're both very excited about his potential.
He's gonna. I think he's the best. He could be the best Japanese pitcher we've ever seen. Darvish had some really good years, and Ohtani's obviously great. But Yamamoto might be better than both of them. Like, he looks really good.
He does. I'm not ready to give him that quite yet, but he looks really good. And for the price that you're gonna have to pay, I'm definitely gonna be having plenty of shares of him. I don't know if we mentioned him, but if the Giants don't happen to win Ohtani, that could be. It seems like a strong landing spot for him as well. They've been in talks with him. And I'm surprised with all the Ohtani and Yamamoto talks that the Seattle really hasn't been a strong contender. We usually see them in these. They have such a strong Japanese market and everything. So it is a little surprising they're not in there because it seems like they have the cap space to spend. They don't really have anybody on the roster that I see that they're shelling out money for unless they're just planning on dropping 800 million to Julio.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't know when they sent away Kelenic, that puzzled me. So I don't really know the Mariners really plan. I heard from one writer, well, it'll remain nameless, but they did say that the Mariners are interested in Yamamoto and Ohtani. So yeah, I mean, maybe they make a shocking, like, you never know. They might shock the world and be like, oh, wow, Ohtani's going to the Mariners. That wouldn't totally shock me because again, it's West Coast, and yeah, I mean, I honestly, I'd think Mariners before Jays, even though a lot of people are saying Jays. So I don't know. We'll see.
I see Jays a lot. I don't see a lot of Mariners, but I'm with you. Like it would shock me less if it was like, oh yeah, Seattle, by the way, was in it. They didn't say a thing because they understand that Ohtani didn't want this out there, and they dropped $750 million and got him to DH because they have pitching. They have great pitching. So that would be a humongous addition to Julio Rodriguez, and the Mariners.
Yeah, no, and what? Ty France is nothing.
All right, fine. Ty France and Luis Urias and Josh Rojas, Sam Haggerty. Yeah, all those guys really benefiting them today.
They got all they need is Grossman. They have Grossman and Haggerty, and it's like, oh, your guys describe your lineup.
We could probably send Trent Grisham over here too, just for whatever, however he would fit into that, like Grisham novels somehow.
Oh my God, the Yankees wouldn't send Grisham for Muniz. They would do that in like a second. They were like, please.
Yeah. Maybe Trent Grisham might actually just be the Aaron Hicks of this season. Just the guy who gets playing time for no apparent reason and in New York all the year.
Totally.
All right, great. We're rambling at this point. People are like, oh my God, shut up. So we will shut up. If you have questions or you want to talk about something, you can always find us on Razzball. We're in the comments section. You can find us on youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy or on Twitter. I am at RazBeaton. And of course, Gray is the owner of the @Razzball account. We'll talk to you in January when we start up the rankings discussion. If something crazy happens between now and then, you might get another show. But until then, Gray, I'll talk to you later, bud.
All right, Lates.